The case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia has become a point of contention between the Supreme Court and the Trump administration, highlighting a potential conflict regarding immigration law and the execution of judicial orders. Abrego Garcia was previously deported to El Salvador, a move that the Trump administration's own lawyers have since acknowledged as an administrative error. Furthermore, an immigration judge had already ruled against his removal to that specific country. The Supreme Court intervened, issuing a clear directive for the U.S. government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return from custody in El Salvador. The justices emphasized that his case should proceed as it would have if the initial improper deportation had not occurred. This ruling underscored the responsibility of the government to rectify its acknowledged mistake. However, President Trump, in a recent interview, offered a different perspective on his administration's ability to comply with this Supreme Court order. He stated that he would only seek Abrego Garcia's return if instructed to do so by the Attorney General, implying a need for legal authorization. More controversially, Trump also asserted that the ultimate decision on whether Abrego Garcia could return would lie with the leader of El Salvador. These statements directly contradict the Supreme Court's unambiguous ruling, which places the obligation to facilitate the return squarely on the U.S. government. Legal analysts have pointed out that the president does indeed possess the executive power to act in accordance with the court's order, making Attorney General Pam Bondi's potential advice to the contrary legally unsound. The president's suggestion that the head of El Salvador holds the deciding power further complicates the issue and disregards the Supreme Court's mandate. The court's intention was to correct an error made by the U.S. government, and the resolution should therefore primarily involve actions within the purview of the U.S. executive branch. This case raises significant concerns about the Trump administration's approach to immigration law and its willingness to adhere to the rulings of the highest court in the land. The apparent disconnect between the Supreme Court's directive and the president's public statements suggests a potential challenge to the established legal framework in the principle of separation of powers. The continued resistance to Abrego Garcia's return, despite the acknowledged error in the Supreme Court's order, indicates a potentially broader stance on immigration enforcement that may prioritize certain policy objectives over strict adherence to judicial rulings. The implications of this case are substantial, potentially influencing how the administration handles future immigration matters involving acknowledged errors or court-ordered remedies. The legal and political ramifications will likely be closely scrutinized as the situation unfolds.